Hey guys, Spanners here. This is not even our midweek show. It's not our Canadian Grand Prix race review. The F1 bosses have dropped the F1 2026 calendar, and I'm going to be responding to it. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So let's be friends. I'm joined here by somewhat of an expert, really, when it comes to scheduling and tracks and venues. We've got Chris Stevens joining us. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Spanners.
You don't normally get to talk with the music under you. Look at that. Do a We Live F1. Quick.
Well, we love F1.
Took too long.
No, that's not even the line. It's We Live F1.
It's all right. We've only been on Missed Apex for 9 years. Chris Stevens,
Yeah.
TNT TV commentator, actual TV motorsport commentator, gracing us with your presence. Hello, Chris.
Yeah.
It's quite good.
Pretty wild year.
Do you remember when we said about 18 months ago, Chris, let's lose a bunch of weight, and then if we get skinny, they'll put us on TV? And they put you on TV. So well done you.
Happened, yeah.
I must still be fat. Anyway, we've got 2026 has been announced. And actually, it surprised me because I'm sure there used to be times where we'd be going into the winter not quite knowing exactly where the calendar's going. But they've announced it nice and early. There's a couple of surprises on there. There's a couple of common sense things. And there's a couple of, why did they do that? So let's start with the headline for me. There's a couple of headlines. There's a clash with Indy. Monaco was moved to avoid that. Canada now clashes directly with the Indy 500. But for me, the big news is that the Barcelona Circuit de Catalunya, survives, Chris. It survives the cull.
And it's funny because I happened to be in Barcelona at the circuit at the end of last year, and we're chatting with the owners of the circuit, and wanting to get some sort of assurance, basically, that they were still going to be on the Formula One calendar, and they were very confident that they would be sticking around in the short to medium term as well, despite the introduction of Madrid to the calendar. It will not be called the Spanish Grand Prix. Though I understand Madrid will be the Spanish Grand Prix, so I guess we'll either see the return of the European Grand Prix name, or they might call it the Catalan Grand Prix, as it's known in MotoGP as well, because they have 3 rounds in Spain, so they have some different names for those ones.
Okay, I don't want to risk getting this Spanish geography wrong. But so the Barcelona Grand Prix will be the Catalan Grand Prix. Is that what
the circuit is known as the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya.
Yeah.
So it is, yeah.
So and also
Catalan
like
region.
Catalan's like the Scotland of the United Kingdom, isn't it? They want to be their own bit. So if you had a Grand Prix in Edinburgh and you called it the British Grand Prix, people would be like, oh, okay, rumble. But if you called it the Scottish Grand Prix, they'd actually be happier.
Maybe. I'm just going off the fact that because in MotoGP, it's known as the Catalan Grand Prix. So, yeah, I guess I'll either call it that or the European Grand Prix.
In one sense, what it's called is the lowest concern. I think I would have been really upset, I think, to lose Circuit de Catalunya for a street circuit. It may happen eventually, but just to have that 1-for-1 swap to kind of coldly rip out one of the oldest and most iconic race circuits with a street circuit in the same city, I think that would indicate kind of a bad direction. What next then? Take out Silverstone and go racing around the roundabouts of Milton Keynes. There's a philosophical difference. But having a second Spanish Grand Prix, okay, I'm fine. That is going to completely kill the argument for the people who are going, oh, why does America get 4 Grand Prix and Europe gets all these when Spain now literally has 2. Italy's had 2 for ages as well. So actually that argument was already dead. But it does mean the end of Imola. I mean, thank you, Imola. You got us through a tough spot there, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that Barcelona's still here, especially since they reverted back to the old layout thanks to the safety improvements in the last sector. It's just made the lap and the racing a million times better. Imola, yeah, that kind of had to be sacrificed because obviously one of the goals of the calendars moving forward is to group together the regional races more and more. And the one that was still a bit weird in this year's calendar was the fact that we go to Europe and then over to North America and then back to Europe again for Canada. And so by removing Imola, they've been able to move Canada forward and push Monaco back. So we go from Miami to Canada, and then the European leg starts. And I totally get that. I really do. Just before we get into what I'm a bit annoyed about, on Imola, I'm not going to miss it too terribly much. It's so funny how the Grand Prix, when it came back, and for many years, didn't really get much love. And then suddenly this year, everybody sort of got graduation goggles about it and got all misty-eyed and thought, oh, what a shame that we're not going to have Imola on the calendar next year.
Well, there was a reason why it left in the first place, and that was sort of immediately obvious. But I have to say, they did have some entertaining races there. But yeah, it would be the same as like having I always pick the wrong one. What's the Grand Prix track near the Nordschleife, the Nürburgring GP track?
What you mean, the one that's the Nordschleife is part of?
Right. Yes. No, you can't say the Nordschleife is part of the GP circuit.
Okay, well, the Grand Prix circuit is part of the Nordschleife. Either way, they're connected.
Yeah, but it would be like bringing that back. That's similar to bringing Imola back with those tracks that just aren't really going to work with modern F1 cars. So right. The difference, I think, with Imola is we had already grieved it. We'd already moved on. It came back and you kind of went, oh, really? And it came back with Portimao and it came back with Mugello to save the COVID.
Yeah, but Portimao was actually the first time Formula One had gone to that track. And I think it's far superior to tracks like Imola, personally.
Okay, so what we should do is we should do our calendar of tracks that aren't quite up to being an F1 track, but we really love. So, like, so you could have like Brands Hatch, Donington, Mugello, Portimao, and have that as you could kind of have that as an F3 series, couldn't you, if you ran an online series?
Well, Brands Hatch used to host Formula 3 racing back in the day, back in the good old days of the European series, which was the proper Formula 3, in my opinion.
I don't think they should call it the European Grand Prix, though, because the European Grand Prix means a particular thing to me as an olden days F1 fan. And if you have a European Grand Prix, to me, that goes, oh, maybe it will be Brands Hatch next year. Maybe it will be Mugello. So, yeah, no, I don't think anyone's going to miss Imola. I think it's the right thing to do to move on. And so, yeah, the other headline is the clash between the Canadian Grand Prix and the Indy 500. So Monaco was on the same day. Now, Monaco's a really high profile. Indy 500, really high profile. They're on the same day. That was always seen as a bit of a problematic clash. Now, though, it's clashing with the Montreal Grand Prix, and that is at North American times. So I think they're literally on at the same time now. They made it, Chris, they made it more of a clash.
Yes. So you say it was problematic. Problematic for who? A handful of journalists who maybe wanted to be at both events. For fans, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Literally on my birthday this year, I took some of the Missed Apex crew to a bar. We watched Monaco together, and then we watched the Indy 500 together. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a great day of racing. Now, at the top of this segment, you mentioned some common sense stuff and some stuff that's very annoying. This is a result of both of those things, though, because the common sense move was to move Canada closer to Miami so that we had those two regional races closer together. But putting it on the same day as the Indy 500 and creating a direct clash, because Monaco and Indy were never on at the same time. They were on the same day, but never on at the same time. So to have two North American events like this going on at the same time is a huge, huge problem.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of North American fans would rather be at the Indy 500 than at the Canadian Grand Prix. And for us here in the UK, well, Sky Sports is going to have to come up with some sort of creative solution because, of course, the channel you'll watch IndyCar on here in this country is Sky Sports Formula One.
I didn't even think of that. But hello, live chat. Wes says, "Yep, Chris, that is a great day of racing if you don't watch Monaco." In fact,
look, when we drank through it, it was much more entertaining.
You should have said, "Yeah, I know. I spoke to Carl on the train home. I'm not telling any tales." And we should have said a great day of motorsport rather than a great day of racing. So if you're one of those that enjoys Monaco as the event, and you can have that on, actually, if you've got it on in the bar, then that's a different prospect altogether. Yeah, lots of fun there. So now there's a direct clash. And I was trying to find some figures. And I think, according to Nielsen, which is the American thing where they go around asking people, what do you watch? And then they extrapolate that from a sample. It's very well respected if you haven't heard the name. Says that there are 54 million total US fans. So I don't know exactly what the definition of fan is, but I'm guessing someone who watches some F1. So potentially 54 million. The audience figures for Indy was 7 million for the Indy 500 this year. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong. This is like just on a quick search. And I couldn't find the figures. I could only find the local figures for Canadian Grand Prix for ABC's viewing figures. I couldn't find what F1 TV did. But there is a lot of overlap there. There is a lot of eating yourself. Now, I don't think this is a case of, right, well, let's stop these new F1's fans watching the Indy 500 to kill it. I think this feels more like, we can't risk Monaco, but if we've got to risk something, we'll risk the Canadian Grand Prix instead.
But Monaco's it's not a risk, because they're not on at the same time. And it's not like you're competing for fan attendance either, because they're on opposite sides of the world. So you're fighting for the TV audience, and you can have both of them. Now Formula One is trying to compete with them for people who might want to go to either of those Grand Prix, and for the TV audience because they're on at the same time. To have a clash with Indy and a clash with Le Mans in the same year, I think is just a bit of a middle finger up to the rest of the motorsport world. And it's like, because in the mid 2010s, we had this really nice period where we didn't have a clash with Le Mans. And that was very nice. That was great for everyone. And I want to see those days where Nico Hülkenberg can rock up at Le Mans and win it with Porsche, like he did in 2015.
I'm not that bothered about having drivers go over and do Le Mans. They can do that
it's
at the end of their career. But, I mean, with Le Mans, though, I watched that thing around Brad's house. You were there, Catman was there, Kyle, Alex, and the first 6 hours were on the safety car. I'm sure we can squeeze a Grand Prix.
You're exaggerating.
It was nearly all on the safety car the whole time I was there in the rain. So yeah, I think it's good. You can't avoid a clash with every motorsport series when you're doing 24 race weekends, and it's the same. And you have to exclude Christmas from that as well.
Yep.
And I think increasingly Ramadan is going to become a break across motorsport as well.
It's exactly why Australia will be opening up the campaign again next year. It's why we start with that Australasian leg and then go over to the Middle East for Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. It's to avoid the Ramadan clash.
Yeah, so you've only got so many weekends to pick from. You're going to clash with something. It's not quite a NASCAR level where I think they've got something like 20 weekends in a row and then a break and then another 20 weekends.
Yeah, something like that.
Absolutely brutal. But yeah, for F1, you're gonna struggle to avoid everything. So what would you say are the events where you think, right, out of respect to the rest of the motorsport world, you'd want to try and avoid them? Because surely there's some
just
massive...
Indy and Le Mans.
Just Indy. There's no massive MotoGP thing that we all have to avoid, or...
No. But there's no like standout MotoGP event, really. And also I think there's much less crossover between bike racing fans and car racing fans, to be honest. Like there aren't going to be people who are like, oh, should I go to a Grand Prix or the Isle of Man TT? People, they'll just go to the TT. Okay. Whereas I think the sort of Triple Crown events, these huge standout events from the year that are Indy and Le Mans, I think you should try and avoid clashes with those.
Heraclea in the chat has just said it's the Madrid ring that's going to clash with Le Mans.
It's Madring.
Is that what they're calling it? Madring, because it's Madrid and a ring.
It can't be. That's in September. Hold on, let me.
Well, Chris does that clash. I'm just going to go through the start of the season for those of you who haven't looked. So it's pretty much the same races. We've lost Imola. We're gaining Madrid. There's no other huge surprises. It's more about the ordering and the scheduling, which I think has a big effect. So the start to the season is quite a strong start to the season. So you're going to have Australia, then China, Suzuka, and Bahrain. Now, China, Suzuka, and Bahrain are just good racetracks. Suzuka could be risking joining that group where we talk about Hungaroring, Barcelona, Imola, these kind of tracks that are starting to feel a little bit creaking at the edges for the modern F1 car. But there's more to save Suzuka than there is, for example, to save Barcelona. And China and Bahrain are just good racetracks, great racetracks for Formula One. The reason for 2026, I'm not even concerned about Australia, that tends to not deliver a banging race, is because it could have very 2014 beginning of turbo hybrid era vibes, with cars suddenly realizing, oh, we've set this up so wrong, we can't get to the end of a straight. Or, they're clipping while another car has got like a 50 mile an hour overlap because they've set their settings differently. So there is going to be chaos next year in Australia, whatever. But looking at that start to the season, it is a really strong start. Chris, first of all, have you got an answer to that clash?
Yes, it's Barcelona that clashes.
Okay.
With Le Mans next year, not the Madrid. Madrid will be held in September. We've got to remember that these races, they're going to be hosting the brand new generation Formula One cars with the removal of MGU-H and
the removal of any power.
Was it 60-40 power split or 70-30? There's still a debate going on between the rule makers and the teams and the manufacturers about what the power split should be, so that we don't end up clipping at a certain speed and not even being able to get up to the speed where you can use that push to pass.
I think there's going to be so many speed deltas. You might just find cars breezing past each other. And
like the old turbo days, where if you didn't spool up the turbos properly, you could just be like blitzed by, or if you missed a gear or something like that.
If you missed the gear and didn't get in the power band, from my experience of olden days cars. So also, one manufacturer is just going to get it wrong. So there's going to be the drama of that. It's got like all the Ferrari cars at the back in just a little block running around by themselves. Who was it?
That's an optimistic appraisal. I like how you avoided mentioning one manufacturer there.
Well, Renault would be the go-to example in 2014, wouldn't it? Like Renault just had an absolute disaster. Yeah.
But they're not even making an engine now. I was going to go with one of the new boys who's coming in and is making. I mean, let me just put it bluntly. No one's got a lot of faith in Ford's, Rebel powertrains engine. Everyone says, "Oh yeah, Mercedes is going to have the best one."
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's why Russell and Verstappen are going to team up at Aston Martin, for sure.
Well, they've got a Honda. Don't forget.
Oh yes, right. Okay. I don't know where I'm at in my head with these rumors.
No, I totally I understand it, because it is really bizarre, some of the new engine deals that have come about. Like, I never would have put Aston Martin and Honda in bed together. Someone's actually said, let's bring back Istanbul. I would love that. I would happily replace a couple of these races with a track like Istanbul.
Hang on a sec. Right. The 2020 COVID tracks that rescued us, right. Istanbul, Mugello, Portimao, and Imola. Out of those, Imola's a weird one to have stayed, really, wasn't it? Like, Portimao looks really interesting. I don't know why Istanbul didn't get the nod, because that was a classic track. Was it one of the first big Tilkodromes to come in?
Yes, I think it was like the third one, because Sepang was the first one to come in '99, I think. Whereas Istanbul came in the early 2000s and was an instant hit, hugely popular. And we know that Tilke, for several years afterwards, attempted to recreate Turn 8 at every other racetrack and just made a far worse version of it at every because there was the one in Korea, there was the one in India, there was Sochi as well.
Yeah,
they were all just
no. Hang on, India. Right, okay. I know we were meant to be talking about the calendar, but now India was a good track, and the Korea one. Korea was a good track. There was fine. Korea was like straight hairpin. It was like a go-kart track, and then it wiggled off. There was some good racing there. 2013, Korea, Hamilton versus Hulkenberg. They had a great little fight.
Look, Korea was fine until it started sinking into the earth.
Have they not watched any Monty Python? Then you build another one on top of that, and then that, and then that one sinks, and then you build a third track, and that one will stay. But yeah, India. I thought the Indian track was a good track as well. But yeah, okay. Let's stick with this track for a moment as I find my notes. So I think that's a strong opening start to the season. There's a concern then that they go to 5 tracks in a row that do produce stinkers occasionally.
Yeah.
and then we go on to the banger tour. So it's almost like
Wait. Hold on. Sorry. What are your five stinkers?
Jeddah.
Jeddah is like nuts.
Jeddah's your ultimate. Here's an indoor kart circuit where there's one place to overtake.
That's just
There's one place to overtake, isn't it? And it's a scruffy chicane, and someone goes off, and then the stewards decide.
No, because when they get rid of DRS, you'll actually be able to overtake into other corners. And there's not like, oh, you've got your one defined zone. Because right now they're all competing to get the DRS down the front straight, the start and finish straight. But once you remove DRS, they won't be fighting for that anymore.
I forgot about that. I was just watching that.
Yeah, so I counter you, sir. But I know you're about to say Miami afterwards, and I 100% agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, there was some good racing at the start of the Grand Prix this year, and it fizzled out. But that happens. Grand Prix do fizzle out. They'd shuffled into the order they were going to stay in. But it definitely has a potential to be a pretty dull one stop. Dry Montreal. We're not going to argue that you get dull Montreal Grand Prix when it's dry. And by the way, I'm speaking to Mike Caulfield tomorrow as part of the Canadian Grand Prix preview. So we'll have Mike's interview out maybe Thursday morning. And the first question I'm going to ask him is, do you treat the two races completely differently? Dry Montreal, wet Montreal, completely different. Then Monaco, I trust no argument there. And then Barcelona as well. So I think you've got like a really dry period of potential just one stop, very uneventful Grand Prix.
Yeah,
five in a row.
Spain this year, the Barcelona this year was, I think,
it was
very entertaining.
It was fascinating from a tech point of view, from a strategy point of view. I don't know if it popped with everyone as a whole. I think people who were, who watch it in the live timings might have found that more interesting than people who were waiting for some action. Then Max rescued it by accidentally.
I don't do the timing stuff, and I thought it was great Grand Prix. Sorry, TikTok generation, if you weren't in love with that one, but that's your problem. But you're right. After that, we get like Red Bull Ring, Silverstone, Spa, and I think this will be the first year it's on rotation, isn't it?
Spa is on rotation.
Spa is on rotation, so we won't have it in 27.
Right.
I think that means. Also, this is the last Dutch Grand Prix as well. 2026 is the last one.
Okay, I'll talk about the Dutch one in a moment. Well, no, I hate it when we do that. We'll get to that later. Since you brought it up, we'll just talk about it now. So the Dutch Grand Prix going is not a drama for me. Like I'm not, even if it was a much better track and event, I'm actually not that bothered just because of the high proportion of current Dutch F1 fans that are literally only in it for Verstappen. So it was a track that they only went back to because of Verstappen being prominent. And I think that kind of makes sense. Definitely cash in on that. And it makes sense. And if a nation has a champion to get behind, I'm not objecting to that in any way. That's fine. But they are going to go. When Verstappen goes, they're done with F1. So I'm obviously not all, but F1 as a consumer sport in the Netherlands is done once Verstappen leaves. So getting rid of Zandvoort doesn't bother me. I don't feel any need to cling on to it.
But also, they're already banging on about Argentina,
right?
For Colapinto,
yeah,
which is crazy because he's done
nothing yet. Yeah,
he's done like 6 Grand Prix.
He might get dropped. He might get
dropped. Yeah. Because Briatore suddenly oh my god, this guy who's done no testing is rubbish.
Yeah, no, hang on. The guy who didn't do testing, and by the way, I got excited about Colapinto as well. But the guy who did no testing and crashed several times, including twice in one race at the end of last season, is crashing and not doing great. And also, like I know Albon's had a great start to the season as well. I don't think most people are putting Albon up as that big yardstick. And so now, he's not looking like he was last season. The shine's coming off, and you can just see that if that doesn't go well at Alpine, he's still going to have this excitement behind him because Argentinian fans are passionate, Chris. They will
even more than the Dutch are.
I don't know.
Bearing in mind how some of them treated Jack Doohan.
Yeah, and so if you look at the Sergio Perez fans as well, really, really active fan base, that might well be enough for Colapinto to get another drive somewhere, to end up being, in that second wave of Cadillac drivers, for example. You can see that making sense. So, yeah, interesting to see that unfold. But, yeah, if it becomes permanent that we lose Zandvoort, I don't think that changes much on the scale of Formula One.
No.
So, and also Zandvoort gets in the way of the banger tour. So I'm looking ahead past
It really does.
those 5 potential ones where you could go, if we're unlucky, you could get 5 really ordinary Grand Prix in a row. Then I'm going to ignore the fact that the Dutch Grand Prix is in the middle of this. We've then got Austria, banger. Silverstone, GOAT, all-time banger. Hungaroring, still a banger, Dutch Grand Prix. Monza, banger.
Hungaroring, don't forget, this year it's going to have a very new look to it because not only have they rebuilt like all of the facilities there, it's completely resurfaced, and they've changed all the curbing there as well. That I think is going to make it a lot faster than it is right now. So, in fact, I'm going there a few weeks before the Formula One does.
I'm going there a few weeks before the Formula One does.
Well, I think the series, so the GT Open that I commentate for, I think we're going to be the first series to use this sort of reopened Hungaroring.
So what does it change the layout at all?
I haven't changed the layout, but I have a feeling that the new curbing will give it a slightly different feel. You know how at Monza they flattened all the curbs?
Yeah.
And it suddenly, I don't know, it made the circuit feel a little bit different. I have a feeling there's going to be a similar story there.
I mean, Hungaroring, once you get, you've got great racing through turn 1, turn 2, even turn 3, and then the kink up
3 and 4, yeah.
Yeah, that's really great racing. Then once you get hairpin chicane and into that wiggles, for the rest of the circuit, you've got a strange area where it's really tight. There's very short spaces between the corners, but there's still lots of runoff, so there's space there. So I don't know, I know everything costs money, but you could like really reprofile Hungaroring in the middle section. You could just go for it.
Maybe. I haven't heard of them doing that, but
honestly, I think that the Sector 1 alone is good enough to keep great racing at Hungaroring.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Agreed.
And I always enjoy it. I always enjoy it, especially if there's a bit of rain there. You always get racing. So yeah, Austria, Silverstone, Hungaroring, Monza. Yeah, there you go. That's your prime banger season in F1.
Yeah, and then Madrid.
Oh, is that Madrid afterwards?
I don't think anyone is excited about.
No, but should we not learn our lesson after Vegas? And we've had a couple of decent Grand Prix at Vegas. And we were sat here.
Yeah.
We wrote it off, another faceless street track. Oh, look at them disrupting Vegas. Oh, it's going to be awful. And then the drain, do you remember the drain? Popped up and hit Carlos Sainz. So didn't Leclerc flip it up into his own teammate, into Sainz, who then
I don't remember who
it was. I think Leclerc brought it up and it hit Sainz. And then we were all boiling and reveling in Schadenfreude, going, ha ha ha, see, we were all correct. And then that Grand Prix was pretty good.
It was fine.
It
yeah.
was fine.
I still don't love.
So Madrid Ring could be that. Madrid Ring could be that. They could nail it. There's no reason why you can't have a layout that works.
Yeah, no, it's just having seen the onboard lap, it looks awful.
Oh, does it?
So that promo video that was clearly not looked at by anyone who knows anything about motor racing.
Where's my phone? I'm going to try and look at that.
But no, do you know? Remember they sent an AI around on the sim and it was sliding about like nobody's business and bouncing over curbs. And the company that made that video went, oh, look at it, it's sliding around, it looks fantastic. Whereas anyone who knows anything about racing just looked at that and went, that's awful.
If you it just reminded me of an awful track. If you go to Missed Apex Motorsport and look up our live stream of the last iRacing event hosted by Scott Stuffy Tuffy, and he came on and they zoomed in on my car on the onboard and I did like a live talk through of a lap. Really super difficult to do, especially when my gear shifter now is a button next to my press to talk button, and I didn't make it voice activation, and it was incredibly difficult. And when I finished, Stuffy went, yeah, and you can even hit the odd apex if you want. And I was like, oh, it was such a bad lap. So having looked at that, I heard that it was a mix of street track and some custom made bespoke track. Or is it all street?
Seems to be, yeah, it's a little hybrid.
Why write it off? Why not just say
if they want me to work for them, I'm sure then I'll turn around and say it's the most hotly anticipated sporting event of the year.
Choice for you. Imola again, or take a risk, hybrid new street hybrid bespoke track in Madrid. So, you've had a great day. You've had a great day and you're going home with Imola. You can take that home. That's yours. But would you like to gamble? Would you like to gamble for Madrid ring? What'll it be, Chris?
Spanners. I came here with nothing.
Came in with nothing. I've had a great day.
Came here with nothing. I've had a great day. So I'm going to gamble.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And open the door. What is it? It's a boring one-stopper. Oh, sorry,
Oh,
Chris.
no.
Oh, no, you're
Did you have a good time on the shore?
Here's your watch. No idea where that person is from, and I think we'll move on.
The mainland.
After those bangers, then 3 street tracks in a row. So that's a risk of a boring period. Baku, Singapore, Madrid. Now I know people defend Baku. I don't like him. I don't like Baku.
To be honest, it's been so long since I've actually sat down and watched an Azerbaijan Grand Prix properly.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't speak of recent history.
So basically, if there's a well-timed safety car, maybe it's the good
it's
races
like
we've had.
cracking.
Yeah, and when you had the 2 laps red flag when they were doing that, have they abandoned that idea, by the way, that if anything goes wrong with 2 laps to go, you red flag it and have a 2-lap shootout?
Oh, I really hope so.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm also trying to remember as well when we get the old Singapore Grand Prix layout back, because the reason we have that one where it cut out that old
The
chicane,
stadium, yeah.
that's only there while they're redeveloping that harbour.
Oh.
But to be honest, I think they need to keep it. The plan was to go back to the extra chicanes once that redevelopment is finished, and I have a feeling they'll want to do it to show off the new stuff they've built there. But frankly, for the racing, they need to keep the one we're currently using.
All right. Okay. Baku, Singapore, no argument there that it's not going to work either way. I mean, I was listening to that going, okay, what does that mean? Is one better than... No, I don't think one is better.
Oh, yeah, we've had good Singapore Grand Prix in the last couple of years.
Okay. Oh, I'll take your word for it. I'm not going back to watch them to check, put it that way. And then
Fair enough.
And then the run-in, I think it's the same old complaints that we've had.
It's
a mixed...
2 triple headers to round out the season, yeah.
And it's a mixed run-in as well. Like Qatar and Abu Dhabi as the final 2 is uninspiring.
Mexico.
Yeah, and then Mexico, I feel for Mexico because it's got all the ingredients to be great, and it just has 1 or 2 little factors that stop any real racing there. So, yeah, I mean, you got Interlagos sprinkled in, but if I could do anything, I wouldn't feed hungry children around the world. If I had the power to solve everything, I wouldn't cure disease. I would make Interlagos the season finale of a Formula 1 season. Yeah. Like wars, I'd let them continue. They could just go ahead. Because there's a lot of money in wars. So, I need to fund this moving of Interlagos to the end of the season. But yeah, it's a real shame because Interlagos does regularly throw up good Grand Prix. Sprint weekend as well. Sprint weekend. Do you know what, Chris? I get excited for sprint weekends now.
Oh, God, really?
Sorry.
Are they not just...
Yeah,
unbelievably exhausting.
Yeah, they are exhausting, especially from a content point of view. But if it was every race, I think so. But I think 6 now. I think I've been frog in a boiling potted about it. So I've just been sitting there, and now I've suddenly just accepted my fate.
That's fair enough.
I kind of go, sprint weekend.
I'm still not going to commit to them.
Yeah, I would like to see something done about qualifying, though. I would like to see something brought in that just shuffles up the order so that when we go in those periods there that we said, Jeddah, Miami, Montreal, Monaco, Barca, for those races, you need to have the grid out of order in some way. And we don't really have the engine penalties anymore and the gearbox penalties that used to knock people down the grid.
I'm sure we will next year.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure
there's
we
a lot
will next year.
Yeah.
Qualifying, keep it the way it is. We've learned too much from the past. Don't mess with the qualifying format. But for the sprints... Yes, I want to see something that reflects the sprint element more and have a 1-lap shootout.
There we go. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Yeah, and so that will be on a Friday. So it's kind of got a practice session, and you could even have a practice session into a 1-lap shootout, something like that. So that it's not a big deal. So the sprint qualifying shouldn't be a line item on the TV guide. It shouldn't be, tune in for sprint qualifying and it's got to be an hour. How is qualifying longer than the race in the sprint format?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I've literally just thought of that now. You sit down for a whole hour of watching the sprint format.
It's not quite out because they're slightly shorter sessions. So I think it's about like 45 minutes or something like that. But you're right, it's still longer than the race.
So have like an hour's practice. Yeah, take it easy, and then you got a 15-minute break, and then fire up, and you do your one lap qualifying. Yeah. Go for it. But yeah, because that will bring in a random element which will shuffle up the grid and make the sprints worth watching, and not just a smaller section of the more boring Grand Prix to come. Yeah, all right. I'll do that. I'm in, Chris. It's not too late to change that for 2026. Thank you, Chris.
Write that letter to Stefano Domenicali.
Thank you for joining me, Chris. We are very, very excited here at Missed Apex with how your career is currently going. So you are currently a TV commentator. Where can people hear you doing your on actual telly professional things?
Yep, so tune in to select rounds of the British Superbike Championship on TNT Sports to hear me on the support classes. So next round for me will be at the end of this month at Snetterton. I will also be at the Brands Hatch round in July, and also at Assen in September. And also just keep an eye on announcements, probably on my Instagram, at Chris on Racing, for any other additional jobs I might be doing.
If you like Chris, the two of you that like Chris, go and follow him now on his Instagram, because I'm looking forward to hearing official announcements as well. At Chris on Racing on all other social media. Thank you for your time, Chris. We will be back tomorrow. We're probably not going to go live, but that will be our Canadian Grand Prix review. It will be ready for Thursday. So for your Thursday morning commute leading into the weekend, we've got Mike Caulfield and Matt Trumpets joining us. And then for the Canadian Grand Prix itself, it's a late one. So just bear in mind, if you are in the UK, our live stream on YouTube won't be until about 11, 11:30, something like that. So the Canadian Grand Prix itself is in the evening. I'm not going to be the one to give out race times, because there was one where I got it wrong, and I realised I got it an hour wrong. And I was sat there panicking that there'd be someone who missed a Grand Prix start because they got information from me. So in general, critical information about F1, don't get that from me, okay? I'm the guy that says, like, this is what I reckon, and then you yell at me about it online. Feedback at missedapex.net to get in touch with me and Matt, and also to register to come to the Silverstone event on the 5th of July. There'll be some of the Missed Apex crew there. Opportunity to do some karting, but you don't have to. Mostly we're just going to do a live show, a quiz, and then we'll get some drinks. All right? Until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm going to the important motorsport thing, so I'll report back. Yeah, when I'm doing my important motorsport job, I'm on TV. So proud of you, but also, I'm on TV. He has been unbearable.
Yeah.